Glenn Kirschner, former federal prosecutor, MSNBC legal analyst, and the host of the Justice Matters podcast. Glenn, my friend, had to have you on today. Look, it was always just a matter of time before justice would come for Donald Trump. With regard to this particular indictment, what charges could we expect to see?
Yeah, good morning, Katie. It's nice to see some movement on the justice front. And it is a bit of a fool's errand to predict what the grand jury might have decided to indict Donald Trump for, but let me be a little foolish this morning and take a crack at it. We have heard a lot about the charge of falsifying business records. Now, that's a misdemeanor crime in New York unless you're falsifying those business records in furtherance of other crimes to facilitate them or to cover up other crimes. I would be really surprised if what we see next week, assuming he is indicted and the indictment is unsealed, I would be really surprised if all we saw was a misdemeanor, falsifying business records charge. I suspect we're going to see probably 3, 4, 5, perhaps more charges. They could look like campaign finance violations in violation of New York state law. They could look like tax crimes because reportedly Donald Trump went on to take the hush money reimbursement payments as business expenses, which of course is tax fraud. So, I think we're sort of in a guessing game posture right now, but I suspect we're going to see a handful of charges next week.
So, Glenn, let's continue on that path of some optimism. If Trump is indicted, what will happen at that arraignment and what happens next in the criminal justice process?
So an arraignment is just a fancy term for your first court appearance after you've been indicted, and the judge or the clerk of the court will read the indictment to the defendant unless he chooses to waive reading of the indictment. It is simply to put a defendant on notice of what he's been indicted for and what charges he will have to defend against at trial. Then the big ticket question is, what does the judge do pending the next court hearing? The judge will have to make a decision. He or she could just release him on his personal recognizance, or the judge could impose some conditions of release, perhaps travel restrictions, perhaps surrendering a passport, prohibiting the defendant, Donald Trump, from traveling overseas. I don't suspect we will see much more onerous restrictions set than perhaps some travel restrictions, but that's the issue the judge will have to take up. And then there will be what we call an interim status hearing, the next court hearing at which they'll begin to sort out things like a schedule for motions to be filed and perhaps even setting a trial date.
Glenn, very quickly, in related news, a federal judge ruled yesterday that prosecutors overseeing the investigation into Trump's handling of classified materials at Mar-a-Lago can compel one of his lawyers, Evan Corcoran, to answer questions before a grand jury. That's according to the New York Times, citing 2 people familiar with the matter. And now the Daily Beast is now reporting that Judge Howell turned over to special counsel Jack Smith some of Corcoran's written documents regarding Donald Trump. This is the second federal judge to now find that crime fraud exception applies to any attorney-client privilege between Trump and his attorneys. What does that ruling from yesterday signify to you in terms of where Smith's investigation is now, in terms of the timing of it concerning the Mar-a-Lago case?
Yeah, it is moving forward, not only quickly, but in really dramatic ways. Rarely do prosecutors try to subpoena the attorney that represents the target of the grand jury investigation. Not only did Jack Smith subpoena Evan Corcoran, but he has now succeeded in piercing the attorney-client privilege. Judge Howell ruled it doesn't apply because there was some crime, some fraud going on between Donald Trump and Evan Corcoran. Now, we don't know if Evan Corcoran was acting knowingly in concert with Trump such that he's complicit in the crime, or if Trump was using him unknowingly, unwittingly to further his, Donald Trump's, crimes. Those distinctions have a big consequence to Evan Corcoran because now he will walk into the grand jury. And if he was complicit in Donald Trump's crimes, I would fully expect him to plead the Fifth, invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Then Jack Smith's team will have to decide whether to grant him immunity and extract the information from him, compel him to testify and potentially incriminate his client, Donald Trump.
Glenn, there's a lot of questions that are swirling after some of Trump's counsel, including Joe Tacopina, went to the media rounds during the week to talk about Donald Trump's defense in this case concerning the Stormy Daniels hush money payment. Is anything that is being said by Trump's lawyers going to be imputed to Donald Trump in any way? Could it be used against him in a court of law?
No, the sins of the lawyers are not the sins of the clients when it comes to admissible evidence.